The sales robots have taken over, and they're decimating deals left and right, destroying them right in their tracks. On the AI for Sales podcast, our mission is to empower everyday sellers to embrace AI superpowers to build new bridges and crush quota. Dr. Joel Abon said it best in the AI for Sales book. In sales, time kills deals. In AI for Sales, AI kills time. Join our hosts as we learn from the C-suite of the world's fastest growing companies about how you can leverage AI today to transform your sales revenue engine while being the best version of you.
Good morning, good afternoon. Chad Burmeister, and I am your host of the AI for Sales podcast. I'm back on season 2, and I'm really excited to have someone with me today who I got to meet in person in Boston just a few short months ago. He is the owner and CEO of Objective Management Group, or OMG for short. This is a company that's been around for more than 30 years and serves hundreds and hundreds of companies to help them find and onboard amazing sales players. They provide a platform that helps a hiring manager determine who they should hire and will be successful and who they should pass on. So we're going to dig into this, how AI and really big data and analytics is what I always call it with OMG plays a role. But I'm just excited to have Ben here with me today. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chad. Super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. And it's always great to spend time with you.
Yeah, man, you as well. So Ben took over in October of 2022 as CEO and owner of Objective Management Group. They serve customers through about 130 different partners, channel partners, and their goal is to grow rapidly to over 250 in the course of the coming months and years. And I'm excited to be part of that. I've been a customer for going on 10 or more years, leveraged it at many different companies. And I want to share with our audience today, what can big data and analytics do to help you hire your sales team? So before we get into that, Ben, I'd like our audience to connect with you as a person. And I'd like to understand kind of, if you go back, rewind the tape to, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, what was your thing back in those days? Like, where'd you live? Paint a picture of what your passion was back then.
Oh man. Yeah, sure. So I grew up in New Jersey and then in Michigan, a small town called Hillsdale. And I was not too different than I am today. I was a really nerdy kid. I love Star Trek. And I still do. I'm a huge fan of all the shows that they've come out with. And, I think for me, it was just very, obviously, they're kind of like the flashing lights and the spaceships and the lasers and stuff that any 6, 7-year-old kid is going to like. But also it painted this like really optimistic view of the future, right? Which I found really, really attractive, really inspiring. And it's also like kind of really grounded in reality. You look at all the devices and stuff that we have today, smartphones, tablets, like computers that'll talk back to you and, natural language, all that came out of Star Trek like 30 years ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely was a Trekkie as well as Star Wars. And those were definitely two of the top favorite on my list as well. So in that vein, if you think about where the world is headed with artificial intelligence and big data, what is it about Objective Management Group that caught your attention? Because you've been in the financial world, you understand, understand deeply about hiring salespeople, bringing them on, ensuring they're successful, reducing the churn. I mean, all the things that go into hiring a successful sales team. What piqued your attention with Objective Management Group, and why'd you join the company in the first place?
Great question. Simple answer is it was the data. Right. OMG has been around for 30 plus years. We have worked with over 2 million salespeople at this point. So when you think about just like the 2 million salespeople and on each salesperson, we're collecting, I actually should know this off the top of my head. I don't, but we're collecting, let's say several hundred kind of columns or fields of data. Different attributes about that salesperson. So if you think about sort of the quantum of information that we have about salespeople, what drives good performance, what drives poor performance, what drives performance kind of at different levels of the hierarchy. Because one of the cool things we do is we look at the salesperson, we look at their manager, and we look at kind of the effectiveness of how that team works together. It just seemed like a great opportunity to continue to build on the analytics and the data, the knowledge that Dave, who founded the company, has already started with. So I was just very excited about that.
Love it. I'm big into Be Extraordinary. I wrote a book called Be Extraordinary. And it's really when you can be who you were made to be, your God-given talents and skills, it's much easier and frictionless when you live in the role that you were made for. And so when I look at Objective Management Group, it does such a good job of having me answer a series of questions in under 30 minutes. And then it'll tell me where my, I don't even want to say minuses, because it's just where are my strengths and where are my opportunities. And then when you can align that person with maybe it's an SDR role for inbound leads, maybe it's BDR, maybe it's account manager for farming, maybe it's hunter. There's so many different opportunities in sales and marketing now that if you can understand yourself, and then your manager can understand you, and the CEO can understand the complexity of the team, why wouldn't you want that data, the ability to be predictable and scale a team? Because to me, force fitting somebody into a role that they really aren't built to be in, it's going to be bad for the rep. It's going to be bad for the employer. So lose. Let's make it a win-win.
You're totally right. And I think you hit on a couple of super important things there. One is the sense of fulfillment that you get from self-awareness about where you're strong and where you're able to, kind of be your best self in the workplace. And then two, the impact that has on the organization from a performance standpoint. One of the things that I was very impressed by with OMG, and I'm really proud of, is that 92% of the sales reps that we recommend, when they are hired, they end up as top performers within 6 months. Right. So, and I think that doesn't just speak to kind of the power of the analytics that we're bringing. It speaks to what you just said, which is, hey, if you can find people and put them in a role that aligns with who they understand themselves to be and shed a little bit more light on who they are in the workplace and how they perform well, they perform very well and the organization benefits.
Yeah. One of the biggest gaps I've found in sellers, and thanks to OMG for even showing me that this is a thing, is the buy-sell alignment gap, as well as the, I call it the money gap, but the ability to have conversations about money. And the way you buy tends to be the way you sell. So if I go into a Lowe's or a Home Depot, is how I've kind of described this to reps that I hire, and I look at a big purchase, which could be, let's say, a refrigerator freezer, $2,500 for the top LG brand, or I can probably find something for $1,900 if I tried hard, or a used one for $800. And if I go into a selling behavior motion and I'm buying where I need the 10% discount, my dad's in the military. Hey, Dad, can you come with me? I can get the 10% military discount. If I'm buying that way, then when the customer gives me the objection that says, well, I'm going to need to think it over, or is that the best you can do? I've found that tends to be one of the biggest gaps in sellers. And thanks to OMG, I've been able to have that conversation with a number of reps over the years and say, hey, knowing that you have this buyer behavior, how do we make sure you don't bring that into your sales call? So it's been a great coaching mechanism. So I thank Dave and thank Objective Management Group for bringing that one to bear, because it's certainly helped a lot of people over the years.
That's awesome. I'm really, really glad to hear that. That's great.
It's really neat. So talk to me about big data, analytics, AI. AI is kind of the buzzword ever since ChatGPT came out. And then I think there were more users in a short period of time than there were, Facebook made the trek to however many hundreds of millions of users they had. And then it just keeps getting shorter and shorter. And now ChatGPT is known to almost everyone in the world, probably. How does AI or big data and analytics play a role in the types of services that you're able to provide to your customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll talk about, I want to make a couple of things clear. So in terms of AI or artificial intelligence, we don't use that in our product. And that's actually something that, as much as I want to be on the bleeding edge and innovating, that's something that, I think we and a lot of other people in the assessment industry are kind of understandably very cautious about. There are a lot of concerns around making sure when it comes to employment screening, that you can understand what's in the black box and that, there isn't bias that's being built into the black box. Right. So I think there's, quite a lot of thoughtfulness and scrutiny around that. So we don't use AI when it comes to our evaluation. What we are exploring and what I am really, really excited about is bringing machine learning into our evaluations, our salesperson, our sales team evaluations, and using that to basically unearth insights that might be less intuitive, or help our partners, the trainer and their client, get to the right answer faster, right? So, you might think of it as, you see this a lot today, medical imaging, MRI machines, right? We kind of think of ourselves as the MRI for salespeople, right? And we work with our partners who are the doctors, and they come up with the treatment plan. One of the things you see in medical imaging today is the use of machine learning to identify problem spots or images that are not visible to the naked eye. And you're able to catch cancers or malignant tumors much earlier than you were able to before and get into treatment, right? And I think there's an opportunity for us to do something pretty similar on the sales evaluation side, which I'll happy to kind of talk about some more. I love kind of nerding out on this stuff, but I'll stop there and you tell me where you want to go.
I love it because I just sat on the couch with my mom and dad recently. My dad was a radiologist, so MRIs is something that's near and dear to his heart. And this was about Bard, the new Google AI that's coming out. And one of the first industries that he said would be affected by the AI is exactly that. He said radiologists, because, the AI can read through so many and catch the things, just like you said, that wouldn't be caught by the naked eye. And so my dad was just nodding his head the whole time going, yep. Back in his day, he made good money, and I'm sure they will continue to make good money. But what if you could have, 5 times more films read in the same amount of time? When he would dictate, I remember going into his office and he'd say, he uses a lot of ums and ahs. I remember, clavicle left, the different medical terms. But nowadays, if you can catch that ahead of time, flag it, and then, hey, these are the top 10 you should look at out of the 500 cases that you're reading. So I think that's totally accurate. If you were to look at the buckets inside of a salesperson, I remember I wrote a book called Sales Hack. It was my first book. And I included the OMG top 5 traits of a successful seller, right? Number 1, they want to be successful in sales. The number one thing, 100% of the top 5% of performers have a desire to be successful, not in business, but in sales. And then number 2, trainable and coachable, 99.5%. Those are the 2 things that if you took everything else out and you said, do you want to be successful in sales? And are you trainable and coachable? Man, I can show you a way to get to the top 5%. I love that about how your assessment is able to bucketize and provide the feedback. Could you share kind of what are the biggest areas that the OMG survey looks for outside of the 2 that I just shared? But what are the most important things that it's looking for?
Yeah. So I think you gave me a great start. So there are kind of 3 big buckets of let me take a step back. We measure 21 core sales competencies, right? And those 21 competencies are they fall into sort of 3 big buckets. The first, which you talked about, is your will to sell. your will to succeed in sales, right? Do you have a desire? Are you motivated? Are you committed, right? To succeed in sales, right? So it's all about kind of, your heart. The second is, which you also talked about, is what we call your sales DNA, which is, you can think of it as, hey, what is the mentality or the belief system that you are bringing to sales? And do you have a belief system that is going to be supportive or encouraging of being successful at the selling role that you're doing? Or is something about your belief system, your mentality, going to limit or inhibit your ability to be successful in that role, right? And that's where kind of coaching and self-awareness becomes very, very important. And then the last piece of it is tactical, right? Okay, are you able to actually just do the blocking and tackling, let's call it, that's involved in being successful in sales, making the required number of outbound calls, being able to sell in a consultative manner, asking insightful, open-ended questions, probing and pushing back appropriately, using technology, using your CRM for your pipeline forecasting and to manage your contacts. So those are kind of the three big buckets that we measure for each salesperson.
Love it. I think of someone like Michael Phelps. If he didn't have the will to be a great swimmer, but he had the DNA to be a great swimmer, and he swam as from age 5 to age 15, and he was awesome, but he just was like, no, I want to be a painter. Then he's probably not going to be a very successful swimmer. Same thing goes in sales. Those three buckets seem to align perfectly. And when you peel back the onion, that's what I love about the technology, is that you can see beyond a reasonable doubt where the strengths and weaknesses are. And then the other part of the technology is it doesn't just give you the assessment. Hey, here's the answer, red, yellow, green, hire, maybe, or not. But it also tells you, hey, if you're the manager that hires this person, even if they're a full green, there's always going to be areas that we can improve. Of course. Even if we're a player, right? Moving an A player from an A to an A plus. I remember from training from Skip Miller years ago. And he's still out there doing his sales training. He's amazing. But he would talk about, if you move an A player to an A plus, let's say they're doing $1 million in quota, and they improve with your coaching 30%. That's a $300,000 ROI. If you work with a B player that's doing 500,000 and they move 30%, that 30% is not the same as if you move an A player from an A to an A plus. And so that's what I love about this technology, is that it converts the red, yellow, green into a structure of questions to ask and things to coach on of that individual person, so that you can help them move from B to B plus, A to A plus, et cetera, et cetera.
Totally right. And then the other thing that comes up a lot when we talk to potential clients and potential partners for OMG resellers is they'll say, I got the tactical stuff, I understand this, or I've got a training program. And one of the questions that we always ask, and I have yet to hear a good answer, is we'll ask them, okay, you know that you need to train your reps on whatever it is, if it's an outbound team, how to make the cold call, how to write the email, how to make sure you're connecting with the decision maker. Okay, you've got the training for that. How do you know that they are receptive to it? How do you know that they want to learn? How do you know that even if they want to learn, that they can learn, right? That they are in the kind of the learning framework or the learning mindset to receive that, right? It's not just about having the right textbook. It's about making sure that you have the right textbook being delivered to the willing students, and understanding who the willing students are. And then also understanding who are the students who are, I won't say predisposed, but who are primed to be A students, who are the students who are primed to be B students, and who are the students who maybe they're primed to be D or E students. So it doesn't matter how much coaching or training you're pouring in them, but they're just not going to move that much.
Yeah. Knowing is half the battle. And
Absolutely.
It turns out probably more than half the battle, because if I know using OMG, I'm 92% successful on hiring top performers within 6 months. So it's like I used to go to Las Vegas when in my younger days, almost quarterly for a while. And if I could have gone into the, place a bet on the roulette table, and right before I placed that bet, the number 11 is just pulsing in green. And I would say, okay, I'm going to put a little heavier weight on the number 11.
Of course.
And most forecasts these days are only 42 to 47% accurate. And those are like in blood commits, as I've heard some leaders call. Same thing goes for hiring a sales team. It's often a flip of a coin. So Kevin Gaither is a good friend of mine. He was the former SVP of sales from ZipRecruiter. And early in his career, he wasn't good at being able to ask the right questions and convert and bring on the right team. He had a pretty standard 30 to 40% turnover rate. His team was average performers. He read more books than you can imagine and said, I'm going to make my free throws become my number one part of my game, as opposed to my worst part of my game, and meaning his hiring skills. And so this guy now, he's retired. He helped the company grow to a level you wouldn't believe. And now he's able to train people on how to find and hire and bring on the right group on the bus in the first place. And I just think so many people are concerned about just bring everyone on the bus that you can and then train them up. And it's just not the case. We need the athletes that are custom built. And I don't mean athletes in a physical sense. I mean athletes in all of the categories that you just talked about. So
totally.
Very neat. Talk to me about, so as AI enters the world, this will be a little bit of a future thinking. I'm working with a company that's out of Florida called Vacodia, and they do conversation AI. So think about hiring and onboarding a team of people, and it's sometimes hard and difficult to train someone. Let's say they should handle 4 objections on a cold call, and the cold call should last more than 4 minutes, let's say. Well, I've seen enough reps that even myself, it's hard to go through 4 objections, right? You feel like, okay, got it. No problem, Ben. Thanks for your time. And you just want to be polite. But if you could move a little bit further down the conversation. So when I met with some folks in Boston at the OMG event that have been doing this for 25 to 30 years, and I said, hey, as AI comes out, what if we brought in some of the best practices that you've seen that people use, the best top performers, and put it into an AI? Is that scary to you, or is that just reality and where things are going?
Yeah, I think that is part of the reality and where things are going, right? Like I've run into a couple of companies that are doing various versions of AI coaching already, right? Some of them, they're doing AI coaching on the live call, right? So it's listening along on your call, and it's coaching you, and it's saying, you've only responded to 2 objections. Go for the 3rd, go for the 4th, or you haven't asked enough open-ended questions. Try this question next, right? And it's like kind of actively, like, it's like this GUI that's in front of your face, like actively prompting you. So there's definitely that. There's also, I've seen some people with, products out there that are focused on how do you deliver your value proposition more effectively, more succinctly. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot. I'm not quite sure ultimately where it all ends up, or, who builds the killer app. We're still waiting to see that, but I think we're going to see a lot more of these products.
Yes. There's a new company I just saw this week, Nooks.ai, and it duplicates the idea of a sales floor for virtual teams. So you've got an image of everyone sitting at their laptop on the right side of your screen. And so just like in cubicles, there's a value of being able to punch into someone else's combo and just stand outside of their cubicle. 25 years ago at WebEx, I wouldn't have ramped as quickly as I would have. So this little Nooks app sitting over there in the sidecar, I'm able to go in and click and listen in, not interrupt or barge, but I could listen in to your live conversation with someone else. And, you've got an A player that you want to go learn from. Hey, let's go get 30 minutes of Y splitter time, back in the day to now Y splitter time on the internet, which is pretty darn neat.
Which is super cool, right? Because it also helps more people, right? You can only do a Y splitter with one other person. But if you're using this app, how many people can you plug into listening to, to that top rep and learning from them at the same time? So much, much more efficient use of everyone's time too.
Let's wrap up the conversation with something that I think is important. And I think you do as well, because you brought it up at the conference. And that's diversity, equity, and inclusion related to the OMG services. And the person who spoke, I had huge respect for, because it's a touchy subject, right? Some people could say, well, does that mean I have to take on a person that, if I look in golf, right? I'm playing golf this week. And so, hey, do I have to take a person that's, 18 handicap or a 2 handicap? And I think that's the question that goes in a lot of people's minds. What I loved about the conversation at OMG is, why don't we just cast a wider net to find the people that we may not be looking for, because maybe they're not applying to our jobs, and I heard someone share recently, hey, there's a college that's 4 miles from this person's office that has a lot of people that come from a diverse background. The benefits of hiring diverse background is 30% increase in sales. So if you believe in a diverse background, rather than just looking inward and saying, well, they're just not applying. No, let's use OMG to score the candidates. I don't necessarily have to take a 18 handicap. I might want to decide, hey, you're not going to hire all greens. There's a maybe middle, yellow ground that says, hey, this person can be coached. But talk to me about your thinking on diversity, equity, inclusion as it relates to the OMG solution.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm also super proud of with us is we are, I think, very helpful in making sure that that the company is eliminating any kind of bias early on in their application process, which is where, unfortunately, you see a lot of diverse candidates end up getting weeded out, either because they don't have the right background, or they don't have the right resume, they don't have the right names on their resume, or they don't have a background that the initial screener recognizes, or they have a name that suggests a particular gender or ethnicity or religious affiliation, or even age, right? Because if you put information about that on your resume, and unfortunately, we as humans all have biases, a lot of them unconscious, and that filters into how we make decisions and, who ends up in the yes pile and who ends up in the no pile. If you use the OMG assessment the way that we recommend, and really kind of best practices from recruiting professionals, DEI professionals recommend, is you put the assessment at the top, right? And it screens, it's an impartial screen. You don't know the person's, you don't have any information about the person other than that they are interested in this role. And you get a very impartial read on, is this person going to be a very strong fit, marginal fit, or are they not going to be a good fit? And then from there, you run them through the rest of your hiring process in a very, kind of structured way to also make sure that you eliminate bias. But one of the things I'm really proud of, and Chad, thank you for bringing it up, is the fact that we can help companies unearth diamonds in the rough, or talent in places where they are just not used to looking for talent. And, to your point, it's a huge competitive advantage. It's a competitive advantage on the top line from a hiring perspective, certainly.
Huge. I mean, I think of people that come from the restaurant industry or bartenders, and that's something that a lot of sales leaders, well, why would I look at a bartender? Turns out I've seen it happen time and time again. If they've got the right sales DNA, the will to succeed, and the three, the categories we talked about, they could become your top performer. So
totally
expand your net, leverage technology to help you score folks that would be a good fit on the team. It's just like the baseball movie. Remember that, where it was all about getting on first base? And I'm blanking on the name of the book and the movie right now, but it was with one of those famous actors.
Moneyball.
Moneyball. There you go.
Yeah.
So this really is Moneyball. Mighty Ducks is always how I've looked to hire my team. I want people that are of all shapes and sizes and backgrounds. The core thread is, do they have the desire to sell? Do they have the sales DNA? And do they have the skills to get there? And
does that make you the Emilio Estevez, the Gordon Bombay of sales?
Emilio Estevez. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, Ben. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. And I know that, Dave's pretty particular in who he wanted to hand the baton off on the next iteration of Objective Management Group. And just like he said at the conference, and I'm going to say it again, you're the exact right leader for taking this into the future. So thanks for being here today and sharing your thoughts with our audience.
Thank you, Chad. That's very generous of you. And thank you for inviting me. This is great.
All right, everybody. We'll catch you on the next AI for Sales podcast, brought to you by TrueVersity and BDR.ai. Cheers.
Hey, you made it this far in your AI for Sales journey. Want to augment your sales growth? First, leave us a review and then visit www.scalex.ai to claim your free strategy session today.